Get set, podcast listener, and be ready to win with your mentor, motivator, and marketer, Cam Roberts. Grow your business and achieve your goals quickly with the latest tips, tools, and tactics on business, success, and marketing. Subscribe now and download your free resources at camroberts.com.au.
Hey there, Cam Roberts here, your friend in business, success and marketing. Thank you for joining me on another podcast show. Now, today's very special guest is Ronny Leber, who is a renowned keynote speaker, stadium host and legacy coach from Austria, who has entertained 5 million people live and worldwide at major sporting events, corporate events and seminars. He specializes in working with high-level individuals and helps them create their own legacy, multiply their impact by helping them build an emotional bridge to their audience and create raving fans. And he also told me before we went on air, he's been a very successful news anchor and been on TV. So Ronny, thank you very much for coming to the podcast show.
Thank you for being here, Cam. I'm happy to be with you, and also for everybody listening, hi from Vienna, Austria. Now,
you've got a very special and unique skill set. You know, you've been a keynote speaker, a stadium host, you've been on TV. Where did that all start for you? Like, how did you get into that live event space?
Well, that's actually a great question, Cam. And the point is, that was never on my list. Like, that was never something where I was actually going to. And because, I mean, like every person growing up, it's like, what do you want to do afterwards? Like, what do you want to do when you get older? Or in my case, I was in my education. I did my school, then I went to university. I studied economics, and then I also studied sports. And at the same time, I was always thinking, like, what do I want to do when I'm done here? Like, what is it? And then I thought, when I was really getting close to getting done, I thought, man, I need to get something like where I want to be an expert in. And then I thought, well, what do you want to be an expert in? Then I thought, well, how about something where I'm really passionate about? Because when I'm really passionate about something, then I'm going to be good at it. Or not just good, then maybe I'm going to be like, if you're going to grow because you really focus on it and it's your passion, you might become the best. Or if you're the best in something or the best in the world, also, you're going to find a way to monetize it. But then the big question was, well, what am I passionate about? Because that's something that not a lot of people can answer you right away.
Oh, yeah.
And especially like passionate about something that you can actually monetize. And so by asking myself those like some questions over and over again, and the questions were, what do I love to do in my free time? What do I spend my time on? What do I get emotional about? What do I spend my money on? What do I talk about with friends? What was it already as a little kid that actually juiced me up, that engaged me? And then after asking myself those questions over and over again, I finally, I always came back to the same answers, which was like, already as a little kid, I was totally like soaked up by events that brought the whole world together. Like a soccer World Cup or Olympic Games, where I was totally in it. I was like, as if the whole world would be centering around that at the moment, or at least my world. For example, if you're not into sports, when you go to a concert and you go there and whatever your favorite musician is, you're not thinking about like, oh, I need to go to the hairdresser tomorrow, or I need to write a text. Like, you're totally there. And then I thought, that's awesome. I want to work in that field. I had no idea what I wanted to work at or how that would work, because I mean, you're not going to know the how if you don't know the what.
Yeah.
But I knew that this was my why, this was my passion. And then kind of also along the line at that time, that was in 2008, a professional soccer team from Vienna. At that time, they came up to me because they were looking for an under 17 and under 19, like for the youth teams, a host for like once a month on a Saturday afternoon to host their games, to play some music and announce the goal scorers and the teams. And I knew some of their youth trainers, the coaches from a sports university, and they recommended me. And then I thought, hey, why not? That sounds like fun. And so, but it was just a hobby. But 1 year later, it was the 25th of June, 2009, the day that Michael Jackson died. And I was at a party at that evening, And I left it was from the sports university. I left at 5:15 in the morning at the same time as one of my colleagues. And she was working at the local ice hockey team, the professional ice hockey team. And, like 5:15 in the morning, I was like, hey, by the way, are you by any chance looking for a new stadium announcer at the ice hockey team? And she was like, I have no idea, but I'll ask. The next day she calls me, you know what? We're looking for somebody. I said,
good.
oh, wow, that's great. A few talks later with the manager, I got my chance. And he said, okay, you know what? You get your chance. So the first match that I ever saw live of that ice hockey team, I hosted and played the music. Like it was a total Hail Mary, as if you would use American football terms. But at the same time, that was for me the starting point. That was for me the time when I said, okay, now it's like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people in the arena instead of before with the youth teams, maybe 100 or 150. And that's also when I started to invest in myself. For example, the first year, what I earned there at the local ice hockey team, I spent it one-to-one on a speaker's education, like a voice education, to train my voice, to articulate better, to know what I'm doing with my voice, to use it more intentionally. And that was also the first time when I knew my what. I found what I was looking for. I found that this is something that I want to do more. And that's how I got into that. Like first sports, then it was corporates, then it was keynotes. And then also when COVID came, I shifted and then it got on TV.
Excellent. Very good. Now, I want to back up a little bit because you made some very important notes or tips that, or strategies, I might say, that not a lot of people kind of get. And that is, when you were telling your story, you said you asked yourself some questions, and they're really specific questions. Like, can you just share with the listeners, like, how powerful is it to ask yourself better questions?
Well, I mean, the quality of your questions are going to determine the quality of your life. Like they're in direct proportion.
Yeah.
Because if you ask yourself crappy questions, you're not going to get great answers.
Yeah.
So you need to ask yourself great questions, high quality questions in order to get high quality answers. And if you do that, then the sky's the limit. Like basically, really, it's about not limiting yourself. Because if you're asking yourself questions that are already limiting yourself, I'm going to give you an example back then. Because before that, I was always, when I was thinking about what do I want to work, I was always like, okay, where can I earn the most money in a way? Like how much money will it give me? And I was always having the money in the equation, which obviously makes sense in a way. At the same time, I thought, no, I'm going to do this differently this time. I'm not going to focus on the money first. Obviously, it's important that you earn some money because we all like live someplace and we all have our bills to pay and so on. At the same time, I was thinking, first, I want to really focus on what's inside here, what's inside my heart, what am I passionate about, and what is it that I really, really, really want to do? Because I believe that we spend way too much time in our work to do something that we do not love to do something that is something that we are just like, oh, man. Like right now, wherever you are right now, make the sound of what it feels like for you to go to work, whether you work for yourself or whether you work for somebody else.
That's
like
good.
Do it right now, whether in the car or wherever you are. And that sound will tell you something about how juiced up you are about what you're actually doing. And I can tell you, I love what I'm doing. Like I really love it. And it all came back to the question I asked myself 14 years ago. But I did not ask them to me just once. Like I kept asking myself those questions for some weeks and months. When I was driving in the car, again, I was like, I still don't know what I want to do. Like, let's ask the questions again. And so I was, and even if you don't get an answer right away, don't be stressed out. It's okay. Let it come. It's a process.
Yeah, that's really good. So look, I'll put you on the spot. What are 3 great questions entrepreneurs, business owners, CEOs, directors, people who are leading other people, and sometimes people are leading themselves, right? So what are 3 questions people should ask?
Cam, that's a fantastic question. And I'm going to give you the 3 best questions that anybody can ask themselves at any given moment. And they are going to determine the quality of your life. First question, what do I focus on? What do I focus on in this moment? Because at any given moment, we can focus on a million of things. Like we can focus on something that we see, on something that we hear, on something that we feel. We can focus on something on our skin. We can focus on our heartbeat. We can focus on our breathing. We can focus on a memory from the past. We can focus on something, a vision from the future. All those kind of things. And whatever you focus on at that moment is going to determine how you feel. And that's going to determine what you do. But let me get to the second question. The first question is, what do you focus on? The second question is, what does that mean?
Right.
Because we all can do so, like we all can be and experiencing the same thing at a time.
Yeah.
For example, many of us will remember that if you're old enough, where we were at 9/11.
Yeah.
Where we were when the Twin Towers broke down in New York, or when they eradicated and when the planes hit them, and how we felt about that. But each and every one of us gave it a different meaning.
Yeah.
And, something that many people do not realize, you can choose what it means.
Yeah,
like
right,
you have the power to choose what it means.
Yeah, totally.
You don't need to just give it a meaning like, oh my God, the meaning came to me and it sucks.
Yeah, totally.
Well, that's not like you can choose to give it an empowering meaning. So once again, what do you focus on? What does it mean? And then comes question number 3. What am I going to do about it?
Yeah,
like
really
what
good.
action am I going to take?
Yeah.
That's question number 3. And even if you say, I'm not going to do anything about it, if you do it consciously, if you say that consciously, fine. But really ask yourself, what am I going to do about it? And that's going to determine a lot of the outcomes that you're going to get in your life.
Yeah,
whether it is in business, whether it is in private, whatever it is. But it's going to be something that's really going to determine, it can change the course of your life like that immediately.
Yeah, that's excellent. Now, I know that you've worked with a lot of people in the live event space. I think, you spoke about before we went on air, you've been a trainer for Tony Robbins. That's correct, isn't it?
It is, yes. Yeah. I still am, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think holds most people back, specifically in business? Because we get a lot of people listen to the podcast program that are interested in business, branding and marketing. So, you would have seen thousands of people, in business, entrepreneurs. What do you think holds them back? What's stopping them? What's that 1 or 2 things that's kind of, they can't get out of their own way to achieve?
Well, all right. That's a fantastic question. Obviously, like whatever field you're at, you're going to have your own story of what's holding you back right now. Right. Like, oh my God, the sales is not coming in, or like it's this or it's that, like something is limiting us. What it all comes down to is that the biggest limiting factor that we have is what's in between the ears of the business owner. So basically ourselves. Because the business owner is the biggest limiting factor. And especially the younger the company is, or the smaller the company is, the more weight this is going to have.
Right. Yeah.
But also when it's growing, it's like as a business owner, you need to grow with your business. Because that's also the reason why sometimes somebody who starts a business is a great person to start a business, but then not a great person to actually lead the business to a different stage.
Yeah.
If you take it for a different stage, I mean, nowadays, some people who might be single, and now with Tinder and so on, there are some, I would say, experts out there who are great at first dates.
Yeah.
They're great at getting somebody to the date. They're great at going to the date. They're great at meeting somebody, but then they're not great at developing to the next stage.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's the same in your business. So it's really like you might be an expert in some stage of your business, but not in every stage. But that's okay. You can grow, and you should grow. So really, in order to expand, I think the biggest thing is, and I'm working with CEOs, for example, and it's always be okay with not knowing everything. Be okay with hiring people that are smarter than you in some areas.
That's good.
Like, be okay and be open to grow. Be open to receive. If you cannot receive, you're not going to get very far.
Yeah, that's really good. And Ronny, how important would you say communication is? Because I know in your story you spoke about how you invested one-on-one in those early days back on your own skills to learn how to speak, communicate, talk on your feet, communicate with others. Like, how important is the skill of communication these days when a lot of the communication isn't even in person anymore?
Okay, let me ask you this, Cam, and to each and every one of you listening right now. Think about a great leader in time. Think about a great leader, a visionary, somebody who comes to mind to you?
For me, it would have to be Zig Ziglar. Like, when I was a young boy and young teenager, I got a hold of Zig's cassettes back in those days, and used to listen to the Zig Ziglar cassettes.
Fantastic. And whether it's Zig Ziglar or whether you're thinking of, I don't know, of Steve Jobs, or whether you're thinking of maybe some Nelson Mandela or some political figure, or if it's Mother Teresa or whoever it is, whoever you name. And for some of you, it might even be Jesus or whatever it is, yeah? Or whoever it is. And now tell me a great leader, a great visionary who is not a great communicator.
Yeah, it's good.
Can you name one? I cannot.
No, I can't at all. I can name many today that are not great leaders and not great communicators.
Yeah, exactly. But they're not going to go down in history. You're not going to remember them 100 years from now.
No, not
maybe
at all.
Not even a year from now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. So look, let's talk about that. Like, I got some tips from you about asking better questions. Like, what are one or two things people can do to improve their communication skills? There might be people listening to us on this podcast thinking, gee, I wouldn't mind starting my own podcast, but I don't know what to say. I don't know how to come across. I get nervous when I'm on camera. Like, are there any tips you could give someone that they could go, oh yeah, that's a good starting point?
Well, all right. I would say the first starting point, because when we think about communication, we always think about, or the first thing we think about usually is, how do I communicate with somebody else? The best starting point is, how do I communicate with myself?
Yeah, that's really good.
Because oftentimes we're really great at acknowledging somebody else and at the same time really great at beating ourselves up.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
Like, don't start with that. Really, give yourself a break. Even if you're not happy with the result that you achieved maybe at times, also at the same time acknowledge yourselves for the greatness that you have shown in your life, for something that you have achieved. And it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah, it's
really
good.
Give yourself that. I heard a speech from Sarah Blakely, and men oftentimes are not very familiar with Sarah Blakely. Women, maybe a bit more. Sarah Blakely is the founder of Spanx. And Spanx, I don't know if you know what it is. As a man, I had no idea what it is. It's like those this magic underwear that kind of makes you feel slim. But like, when you ask a woman, oh yeah, of course I know what Spanx is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's something, and she started it back in 2000 with $5,000 out of her pocket, and basically with a dream. And now it's $1 billion company. And one thing that she said back then, her dad, when she grew up, her dad asked her every day when they were sitting at the dinner table, what mistakes did he make today? What mistakes did he make? And that's so important, that it's okay to make mistakes. Because oftentimes we are trained to not make mistakes, or we believe that we shouldn't make any. But think about it. If you're not making any mistakes, you're not going to get out of your comfort zone, and you're not going to grow, because growth is by doing something extraordinary. Growth is out of your comfort zone. Think about going to the gym and you are not going out of your comfort zones. Like lifting some weights. How often are you going to lift the weight if you're not going to go out of your comfort zone?
Yeah,
and what growth are you going to get if you just lift it once? And
yeah.
All right, that's it. That's not how growth works.
Yeah,
And it's
that's
the
so
same
true.
communication.
Yeah, that's so
So
good.
be okay to fail. Dare to suck.
Yeah, that's good. Very good. And what about the repetition of that? Like, you spoke about it like being a muscle. I'm going to assume that, like going to the gym 3 times a week and practicing, you've got to practice that communication both on yourself and with others.
Yes. So one thing, circling back about the mistakes, one thing obviously is about like make your mistakes and learn from them. Yeah, not
Right.
make the
Yeah.
same mistake over and over again,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
but like learn from them, and also get yourself a coach. Like if you're, for example, I've been working with people on their, like they were doing their first keynote speech, for example. Yeah. So they came to me, and then we were structured. Like the first thing that you need to get is some structure. You need to know, like, how do I structure that? Where do I start? Also, and before you do that, when you communicate, there are always 2 questions before you actually get into the drawing board. The first question is, what is my outcome? Like in any communication or whatever meeting you have, if you have a meeting because you want to get a raise, if you have a meeting because you have a pitch that you maybe are pitching your companies to somebody, the first question is, what is my outcome? Like, what do I really want to get? And the second question is, who is my target audience, or who am I talking to?
Yeah.
What are their needs, their desires? What is keeping them up at night? What are their fears? And the better and the clearer you understand who your target audience is, combined with your outcome, then from that starting point, you can craft a totally different communication strategy than if you're just starting out like, all right, let's just communicate.
Yeah. That's really good.
Like for example, if you build your website, and that's also communication, and talking about the online business world, if you don't know who your customer is, if you don't know who your client is, you're just gonna, yeah, everybody is my client.
Yeah.
Come on. You're not gonna build, if your client is everybody, it's nobody.
Yeah, that's so
Like
true.
you're not gonna build your website for everybody. You need to really know in detail who is your audience, and then you can really talk to them.
Yeah, that's really good. Now, I've heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, that I've heard that when you go online and you want to speak to people, because I've helped a lot of people with their own webinar presentations as well in my industry, and I've heard that people shouldn't try and think that they're on a webinar or on social media doing a video and they're speaking to thousands of people. What they really should do is just look down the camera and just speak to one person. What's your take on that?
I think it's it's great. And I think it's true. And to give you an analogy, we were talking before about online dating in a way as well. Yeah. And some people might be familiar with that. And even if they're not, they know what it is. Like think about Tinder. Yeah. And I have no idea if you out there have ever been on Tinder, are on Tinder, but I'm sure you've heard of it. In the beginning, and I was on Tinder at some time. Like, I mean, I was there, I tried it. And in the beginning, it felt like a computer game. It was like, damn, you're just like swiping and it's really like a computer game. But first you need to make the shift to, this is not a computer game. Those are real people.
Right. Yeah.
Because otherwise you cannot connect to a computer game. The same thing applies on a webinar.
Right. Yeah.
When you are actually talking with somebody, when you are actually, or when you have a Zoom call, whatever you have, you need to talk to the lens. Like you need to really focus on the other person. And even if you do not see anybody else because it's a webinar and everybody is off camera, imagine the one person who your target audience is. Or even if you're saying, well, my target client is like this, give that person a name. Imagine how this person looks like. Or imagine like this is your best friend or somebody who is like you, and talk to that person. Like really focus on the camera. And what I mean by that is not like to focus on the screen, focus on the lens above the screen. Really talk into the lens. And the other thing is oftentimes when you are going online in an online meeting, you are in a room by yourself. So usually if we're talking with ourselves in a room by ourselves, how do you talk? We have this internal communication. And even if we talk out loud, our internal communication, usually it's like, well, I got to go to the grocery. I got to do this. I need to do that. Like you have a different voice.
Yeah, so true.
You're not projecting your voice.
Yeah, that's true.
And the point is, even if you're in a room by yourself, and even if your microphone is like just a few inches or centimeters away from your mouth, project your voice as if you're talking to the other person.
Yeah, that's
at
good.
least to the camera, or I would even recommend to the end of the room, like project your voice as if you're talking to somebody in person, because it's not about that the other person can understand you about the volume or something, but it's about the energy that comes across. Because that is key. You need to bring the energy. Without the energy, you're not gonna, like, if you're talking to, if you imagine you're talking to a wall or to nobody, you're gonna behave differently as if you're imagining that you're gonna talk to your best friend or your client. Like, imagine as if it's real. And also, I was in TV for more than 1,500 hours, as you mentioned, and I had the great privilege of having been in front of 5 million people before. So I know how an audience behaves. Some of my colleagues there, they are great on TV, but they have no idea how live engagement with an audience works. And you can tell. You can tell that they communicate different with the camera than somebody who knows how to engage an audience.
Yeah, it's a real skill. Yeah, that's good. Now, you spoke about, engaging with people on a camera or in Zoom, webinars, things like that. But the other thing that I know that you're really good at or great at and also help other people with is networking. So you spoke about, knowing your buyer persona and, identifying those people. But how do you network with your buyer persona in this day and age when, there's potential lockdowns around the corner and we're all on Zoom, and then we're in the office, we're out of the office and back in the office. So what are your kind of tips or recommendations to, networking in this modern day?
That's beautiful. Thank you for that question, Cam. And by the way, I also I actually wrote a blog post on successful networking. And when I think about networking, I think about a conversation that I had with my cousin. And for you right now, wherever you're listening, before we talked about make the sound of how passionate you are about your job, make the sound when you hear the word networking. Like, how does that sound to you? Is that like, woo, or is it like, ugh? Because that's also going to tell you something.
Right, yeah.
And when I was with my cousin is a solopreneur. He has his own business. He is in real estate. And he's like, yeah, I know I should network more. But like, you could already hear, for him, it seemed like a lot of work. For me, when I think about networking, my approach is just about talking with people and having fun.
Yeah, right.
That's like, really, it's just about like enjoying the time. I cannot fake it. I cannot go somewhere and have a conversation like, which is totally boring out of your mind. And it's like, for me, that's not networking. Networking is building an emotional connection to somebody else. And the key word is emotional connection.
That's good.
Because somebody wants to work with you because they like you. Yeah. Because they remembered the conversation, because they were like, that's a cool guy. Or like, yeah, I like to work with that person. And they're only going to say they like you because there was an emotional connection. Like, yeah, that's good. Oh yeah, I really want to work with him. He was so boring. It was the most boring conversation I ever had. Yeah. But I think he really knows his stuff. Yeah. Never happened. It's not going to happen. Never happens. He want to work with you because you're, and how do you do that? Because oftentimes we believe, well, okay, in private, I'm this really cool dude. I'm this cool guy. And I have fun with people, with my friends, with my family. But now I go to a business event and now I'm putting on a business hat. And now I'm like, I'm a totally different person. Like, because I got to be serious, because business is serious, and I got to be there like, oh my God, and what will they think of me? And I'm the serious guy, because I want to, like, I'm a pro, I'm a professional. I want them to know that I'm a pro and I know my stuff, and I got to impress them with all my skills and my knowledge. Forget about it. At a networking event, nobody's going to ask you about your skills.
No,
nobody's going to ask you,
no.
how do you do that exactly?
Yeah.
How does that work? Or how, like, whatever if you're, I mean, maybe if you're a rocket scientist, they might ask you some things about that, but that rarely ever happens.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, cool, you're a rocket scientist. Then
Yeah.
maybe you get one question about that, and then they want to know who is the person behind the rocket scientist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't hide behind your job. Be you. Dare to be you. Like, dare to be real and dare to be fun. If you're a fun person to be around, and I'm sure to some people you are, show that side. And also, but I mean, obviously, you gotta, let's take a step back. You gotta fish in a pond where there are fish.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, you want to put your rod in somewhere where the fish are congregating. You don't want to put your rod in a puddle where there's no fish inside. So networking works the same way. You need to think, where are the people, like, where is your target audience already congregating?
Yeah, that's good.
Where are they? Like, what kind of events are there?
Yeah.
And I would always say that's something where virtual has not quite caught up with. There is a way, of course, in virtual with meetings and so on, but it's not the same as if you're meeting somebody live.
Yeah, that's right.
And a trade show, may it be a seminar, may it be a workshop, whatever it is, or maybe it is an event in the VIP area where there are going to be a lot of, for example, my target audience are a lot of marketers.
Yeah,
are people that book me, like, to speak for them on their stage, or also at the same time to be their host at an event. So where are they congregating? And I'm thinking of, well, they are going to be at this event, at that event, or maybe at this VIP area. And then it's for me to really see, how do I get into that event? And by the way, I didn't start out with a network. Even if you're sitting right now and you have zero network, nobody knows you and you know nobody, that's where I started. Like, seriously, I had no idea.
Yeah.
But if you start with a dream, if you start with what really makes you, it's going to resonate with other people. Be willing and open to share your story. Be willing and open to share your dream, because there are going to be others out there that can relate with you, that have been there where you are at the path, and they want to help you. They want to help you because you're you. And in the beginning, even if you're thinking, well, events or something, I don't know, just try to get somebody to take them out for lunch or dinner or coffee. Like, really try to go with somebody for a lunch. And in the beginning, it might be those empty miles or empty kilometers. Let's say you want to go into a new area, or like you want to go into a new line of business, and you don't know anybody there. You don't have a network in that, or a new country. But figure out who are some key players and try to get them, like, to offer them something of value to them, and get to go to lunch with them. You can really find out a lot about that person, and of course also about the business. But and also a key thing, when you go to lunch with them, I would say usually when you meet somebody, it's like at least 75% of the conversation is going to be about getting to know that person.
Yeah, that's good.
It's about, who is that person? Who is the human inside? And then it's going to be about the business.
Yeah, that's good. And look, when someone's at a networking event, and I'm imagining someone's listening to this, they're going, yeah, Ronny, that's something I need to do. I need to meet more people, go to a couple of conferences, expos, things like that. But once they meet someone, what's the sort of icebreaker? What's that first one or two questions that they should be asking to kind of, elicit a conversation and make themselves sound interesting or engage the other person?
Well, that's a good question, and it depends. It depends. Do you know who the other person is or not?
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Because if you're just blindly walking around and like, hi, who are you or something, it could be kind of awkward, because like, unless you have something maybe that you just like, you're reacting to a situation that just happened, or like, hey, you just are going to be open, you know, be vulnerable as well.
Yeah.
Be open and vulnerable, like, hey, it's my first time here, or something like, maybe you can help me. Have you been here before? And so on. And how does this usually
really
work?
good.
And like, just have the questions that somebody that are natural.
Yeah.
And at the same time, when you are, I hope it's not too noisy, because somebody out there is really drilling it.
Yeah, that's all good.
And the second thing is also, but if you know who somebody is, for example, you're at a trade show, you're at a where somebody has just spoken on stage, you think this would be a very valuable contact. For example, I was once at a trade show, and there was a guy from the Tour de France, the cycling thing, and like the biggest bike race in the world.
Yeah.
And he was just talking about how they open up new markets. And one of the markets was Colombia.
Yep.
My wife is from Colombia. And I thought, wow, that would be a great opportunity. So when I saw him then out at the buffet, I was like, hi, I'm Ronny. I wanted to talk with you. He was like, all right. Because I mean, he was just on stage. So they're used to somebody speaks with them. But it's okay. Like, be open, be direct.
Yeah.
And then I just said, hey, it was really, really fascinating, your talk. And also, and I think it's really interesting what you're doing. And also I can see that there might be an opportunity there. And then I was getting into, like, with Colombia and the network and so on. And so out of that developed something more. And that's really, really cool, because of being open and really dare to talk to somebody.
Yeah, excellent.
Be fun, be light, be somebody who somebody else wants to have a conversation with.
Yeah, that's good. Excellent.
I know that sounds like, oh my God, I need to be somebody else. No, you don't need to be somebody else. You need to be you. Get out of your head and like, okay, this is it. Don't focus on your own head, on your own thoughts. Focus on the other person. Be present.
Yeah, that's really good. Now, Ronny, one last question before we wrap up, and we're almost out of time, but before we wrap up, is there anywhere people can go to connect with you, learn more about what you do, maybe get some free resources or anything like that?
Absolutely. First of all, go to ronnyleber.com. There you can find basically everything what I do, from being a host, from being a keynote speaker, at the same time also from coaching people to get the results that they want, like may it be on their pitch or whatever. At the same time, or all kind of other things, like growing to be a better CEO, for example. And you can go also to check out my blog there with free resources, just as well as hook me up online on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook /Ronny Leber, and I'm happy to connect with you and happy to have a chat. And also tell me what you got out of this.
Excellent. Well, Ronny Leber, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much, Cam, and thank you for everybody listening. Have a fantastic day.